Here in the U.S., we have reached a landmark moment in the explicitly fascist unveiling of Donald Trump's re-election campaign. In fact, yesterday, the paper of record, New York Times, all the news that fits the print, used the F word in a news article to describe the ex-president's rhetoric. As piece reports on the, quote, scholars, Democrats, and anti-Trump Republicans were asking anew how much Mr. Trump resembles current strongmen abroad and how he compares to authoritarian leaders in the past. Perhaps most urgently, they are wondering whether his rhetorical turn into more fascist-sounding territory is just his latest public provocation of the left, an evolution in his beliefs, or the dropping of a veil. Good sentence. And to be clear, this is the correct, unavoidable assessment of Donald Trump's words and actions. Fascist-sounding, that's good. That's a good description. In recent weeks, he has compared his political opponents to vermin, threatened to use the power of the state to prosecute his enemies. He's publicly discussed plans to round up immigrants and concentrate them in camps and deport them by the millions. And if the man doing all this wasn't also the man who launched a violent coup to stay in power, maybe you could dismiss it as talk, but we all saw it. He already tried to topple American democracy, and he's going to try again. He keeps telling us. That's the language and the behavior of fascism, maybe some different form of it, some 21st century American incarnation, but it's related. It's always been there, but lately it's become even louder. In this movement, the true menace of a fascist kind of movement in this country is becoming more and more apparent. It's not just emanating from Donald Trump or his most devoted fans. We see it and hear it in these sort of concentric circles emanating out from the ex-president. Now, there's some people in Republican Party politics chiefly who just don't have the courage or the moral backbone or the sense or the wherewithal or even just the dignity of self to fight. They're just glumly resigned to it. It's pathetic, but that's how most of them are. Some are actively pushing fascist ideas in the hopes of executing them from positions of power in the new Trump administration. Here's an example, sort of more or less at random. This dude, conservative lawyer Mike Davis, he's got a resume that's like, 1 in 100. Like, you can find tons of guys like this. He helped confirm Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. He served as chief counsel for nominations to Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, then chaired the Judiciary Committee. So this is a guy who was like in charge of shepherding judicial nominations. And he wants to be Donald Trump's next attorney general. And he is laying out his plans for a reign of terror, in his own words, when he gets there.
During my 3-week reign of terror as Trump acting attorney general, before I get chased out of town with my Trump pardon, I will rain hell on Washington, D.C. Number one, we're going to fire. We're going to fire a lot of people in the executive branch and the deep state. Number two, we're going to indict. We're going to indict Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and James Biden and every other scumball, sleazeball Biden. Number three, we're going to deport. We're going to deport a lot of people, 10 million people and growing, anchor babies, their parents, their grandparents. We're going to put kids in cages. It's going to be glorious.
Anchor babies, by the way, that offensive term for American citizens. Now, after my colleague Mehdi Hasan highlighted those threats in a segment over the weekend, Davis replied, quote, Mehdi Hasan is now on my list. I already have his spot picked out in the D.C. gulag. Now, let me just stipulate, this is almost like comically pathetic chest beating of a creepy dork. But again, the history of fascism is kind of full of creepy dorks who came into power and then because they had spent their whole lives as sort of impotent creepy dorks, then used the power of the state to execute their most despicable violent fantasies. All that like down the block toughness, all of a sudden they were then in charge. Of course, that most recent threat against my friend and colleague Mehdi came on a platform owned by the wealthiest man in the world, who perhaps you've been hearing some stuff about, who has also clearly just aligned himself with this fascist tendency. Elon Musk has welcomed back neo-Nazis who had been banned from the site now known as X. He defended white supremacists, compared Jewish billionaire George Soros to a Jewish Marvel supervillain. Just the other day, Musk endorsed the anti-Semitic Great Replacement conspiracy theory, beloved of creepy dorks on the right. That's the one about a cabal of nefarious Jews colluding and sort of puppeteering minorities in order to extinguish white people. It was the inspiration for the mass murder that happened at the Tree of Life Synagogue. Now, Musk has actual state power now on his side. Yesterday, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, the guy who just managed to escape a impeachment, announced an investigation into the Watchdog Group Media Matters in the wake of their report about ads from major brands appearing next to the pro-Nazi content on X. That's what it looks like when people in power, with state power, abuse that power to persecute their political enemies. And again, this is the message. This is what they're running on. This is what Donald Trump and his allies are promising to do over and over, like every second they're in front of a camera. One of the most maddening features of this era is knowing that and watching this happen, while polling suggests that most Americans don't care and Donald Trump supporters have not been swayed. But I got to say, we do have some new data that sort of paints a different picture, courtesy of Nate Cohn and the New York Times. Nate, who's very, very, very smart and runs a great polling operation at the New York Times, he tried this experiment in the polling they were doing to measure how much democracy matters to voters. So when they asked undecided voters if they would support a Democratic candidate who says Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy or a Republican candidate who says we should move on from the 2020 election, the Republican led by 15 points. When they changed that question slightly to a Republican candidate who tried to overturn the 2020 election, the hypothetical Democrat led by 3 points. Cohn concludes that voters may not say democracy is the most important issue, but there's strong evidence that they're repelled by anti-democracy candidates. And again, this result isn't just some comforting abstraction. We've got data on this in the real world. It fits with recent election results where anti-democracy, fascist sympathizing candidates have faced defeat after defeat. Americans, by and large, maybe not by enormous margins, do, in the main, remain in favor of democracy. That's cheering.